they reckon this man has the safest pair of hands in Egypt. His speciality is saving penalties. He's the goalkeeper for Zamalek and the Egyptian national team. His name, Nadir El-Sayed. A year ago, Nadir helped Zamalek to the pinnacle of African soccer. Against Shooting Stars of Nigeria, they won the Champions Cup in front of 80,000 fanatical fans in Cairo. But as their reign as African champions comes to an end, this week we reflect on a mixed year for the club and its players.
Thank goodness Zamalek have become famous throughout Africa. We've won the African Club Championship a record 4 times. But at the same time, we don't want to gain popularity in Africa at the expense of our popularity in Egypt. Young people always support the winning club, and Zamalek's rivals Al Ahly have now won the Egyptian Championship for the past 4 seasons. Their popularity is now becoming much greater than Zamalek's.
Nadir has been with Zamalek since they won their first African Champions Cup in 1984. Since then, Zamalek have won the Egyptian title just 4 times. Internationally, they may be the most famous club in Africa, but at home they're under increasing pressure. Currently languishing in mid-table in the Egyptian Championship, Zamalek were knocked out of this year's Champions Cup by Ghana's Goldfields. Ruud Krol is the club's 3rd coach in the last 12 months.
Changing the coaching team again just doesn't create stability. The management are the ones that make us feel we can't win. All the big players have gone, and to create a new team you need time, but who knows? Next year, God willing.
But the omens don't look good. The 30-year-old Nadir delayed signing a new contract with Zamalek, just one of a number of players who've been in dispute with the club in the wake of the Champions Cup victory. At the heart of the problem is the fact that in Egyptian football there are no professional players. Tunisia was the first North African country to embrace professionalism earlier this year. Many Egyptian players want their football association to follow that lead.
When players talk about football or money, all the clubs want to talk about is loyalty. Personally, whether or not I have a contract with Zamalek is not important. I want to be a professional player, perhaps in Europe. But above all, my ambition is to achieve something in football.
Nadir is one player Zamalek can't afford to lose. Some of his performances this year have helped save the club from total disaster. In the second round of the Champions Cup against Mufulira Wanderers from Zambia, he was the reason Zamalek qualified for the inaugural African Champions League, thanks to a string of fine saves.
Games in the African Champions Cup don't happen very often, and if we have problems, it's easy to forget about them until after the game, which isn't the case in the league. The attitude of the players is to play for our country rather than for Zamalek.
Nadir is now concentrating on the build-up to the African Nations Cup taking place in February in Burkina Faso. A good performance there by the man thought to be the best keeper in Africa could alert the scouts in Europe. After 13 years at Zamalek, many at the club believe the time is right for Nadir to move on.
It is possible for Nadir, because Nadir plays for a big club like Zamalek, and that's a great help. We have the African Nations Cup coming up in February. Hopefully, after a good period preparing with the national team, Nadir will be at his best during the finals.
Nadir certainly has a big reputation in Africa. He made headlines 4 years ago in the final of the 1993 African Champions Cup. He saved that penalty to win the title for Zamalek after both games against Asante Kotoko had ended goalless. It's exactly the sort of pressure on which he thrives.
Thank goodness pressure's not a thing that bothers me. When I'm in a penalty shootout, I'm not nervous. I have great confidence. That doesn't mean I'm conceited. I'm just confident. I train hard and I concentrate on the player in front of me.
Last year's Champions Cup final also went to penalties, and that save by Nadir gave Zamalek an advantage they didn't relinquish. Once again, Nadir, the hero of the Zamalek supporters.
Some people describe our supporters as the 12th man on the pitch. For me, they're the first man on the pitch, the most important. I consider the fans as a mirror. It's important that they're there. If they aren't, I can't see myself. It's important to consider the supporters as the first man and not the 12th.
This is not Nadir's first spell under Ruud Krol as coach. At the last African Nations Cup in South Africa in 1996, Krol was the coach of the Egyptian national team. It was a mixed performance by the Egyptians, and Nadir in particular. An impressive victory over the hosts and eventual winners South Africa was the highlight, but against the Zambians in the quarter-finals, the Egyptians collapsed. Many put the defeat down to the fact that all of the players were fasting during what was the Islamic holy month of Ramadan. Religion is an important way of life for the players.
If we win the match, we thank God. If we lose the match, we also thank God. It's important that we take both punishment and reward, but in the end, we should do our duty, and that means fasting.
For Nadir, the Nations Cup in Burkina Faso could be a make-or-break event. Very few Egyptian players venture out of the familiar surroundings of Cairo and Egypt. It's not an easy move to make in a society that places so much importance on family and religion.
As far as dreams related to football are concerned, there's just one: to become the best goalkeeper in the world. I realize that this won't happen without self-confidence or hard work. My dream is to become a professional. That's what I want to do, God willing.
1997 has been a difficult year for both Nadir and Zamalek. On top of the problems at the club, Egypt failed to qualify for the World Cup. Next year, the Nations Cup promises a fresh start.